Hey traders, this is Christian from Hertz Tribeca Trade Group, and this is your end of day recap for Thursday, September 9th. We've got one more day of the week to go. We do have some things to kind of watch for tomorrow. We have quadruple witching for tomorrow. Before I go into that, just a reminder, everything that you're going to hear today's video is always for information purposes only, not giving out any recommendations or advice or anything like that, as always. So I just wanted to put that disclaimer up there so you could see. But yeah, tomorrow we have quadruple witching. I'll just go over that really quickly. If you're not familiar with how that works, it's 4 things that expire. It's actually 5. But the first one, which is kind of one of the more important ones, tomorrow on the open, index futures will expire on the open. There will be a lot of volume in single stocks. If you're asking why, if I say index, why are there a lot of single stocks with a lot of volume? Because what happens is dealers expire those index futures positions on the open versus baskets of stocks. Remember what an index is? It's just a basket of stocks, or an ETF is a basket of stocks. So you will see a bunch of big market on open orders around 9:30. And within a couple minutes, all that volume will be gone. But you'll see some massive volume on the open. Again, that's dealers expiring their index futures, their last index futures positions on the open. And that's called SQ pricing, special quotation pricing, as they'll give you. You can look on the CME website tomorrow at some point later in the day, and they'll tell you where those indexes officially expired on the open. That's the one quadruple witch. Sorry, it's a bit of a thorough explanation, but in case you're wondering why all that volume is, if you see Amazon or Microsoft, just say, "Oh my God, look at all the volume on the open. What's going on?" It's just for expiry. So at least I try to help in that manner. Some of the other witches, it's monthly options expiration. It is what's known as quarterly index option expiration for options, and also single stock futures, which nobody really uses anymore. The other one, as I said, there's 5, and you could substitute the single stock futures out. It is also index rebalancing day for the S&P and NASDAQ. So everything, not only the SPY and value and growth, but also, indices, all the sector indices, but specifically the equally weighted S&P sector indices can cause a little bit of volatility, like XRT, XBI, ITB. All those are equally weighted, and all those get rebalanced back. So anyway, that was a couple minutes on that. What happened in today's market action? A little bit of fade. I have up the put-call ratio, which was a little bit higher than normal. We did get there was a couple different factors, but I think this had something to do with it. If you go to what we were talking about today was, China is here, and is this a, buy the trade progress rumors and sell the actual meeting? I'm not sure. They're going to have to get something done, and you could see that there was, now who knows if there's any truth to this, but some talk of tariffs being escalated if they, to keep the pressure on China. That's not going to help things. So that came out around 12ish today, but we started to fade. I think if we go to, so here's where it gets interesting in my analysis. I was talking pre-market about how the value areas really helped on Fed Day yesterday. Let's go to the 1 hour, and you can kind of see what I mean. We've been trading in value all week long, right? Getting bounced around like a pinball. Here I thought was good risk to reward, 29.82. That was support for the week. However, we could not break 30.25 and stalled at where we were yesterday. So this was, pretty close to around, maybe we were stalling, before that mention of possible trade tariffs getting escalated if nothing happens with this China meeting. So we started to see some protection being added in things like SMH, XLI, some trade sensitive areas. But yeah, I mean, this is kind of what we got going on right now, and it's a little bit tough. This is not right now in the short term, and of course stocks are going to behave individual stocks behave a little bit different, but for the index, we basically are just chopping around all week long. From where we started the week, we haven't really moved. So, we're getting through, events, and you kind of have to ask yourself, well, what's going to propel this market to new 52-week highs? Because we've gotten a few different dojis at this point, and market breadth kind of trailed off throughout the session, which is not the best thing, I think, in the world either. But, if they kind of come away with more baby steps for trade progress, I think you're going to see this market pop out. If we even get, something more of a trade deal, this market's going to fly higher, in my opinion. If they don't, and they start to talk, if more tariffs come, we're going to stall, and we're probably going to go lower here. So I hate to say that that's what it's up to, but it does seem like we're in like a hold period right now until that happens. And it seems like we've gone pretty far, on that. And there's a bunch of obviously there's many other factors, but it just seems like right now that could be why we're just stalling out and failing to break, break out completely. I'll go over the option activity today, and the performers, small caps. So this is so small caps led the indices down. They would finish down half a percent for the day, but really sold off from the open. From a positive open, down 70 basis points. So again, kind of gives you a kind of sense of risk off. You couldn't really hide in any other places besides equities. Bonds went down for the day. They started positive, and they stalled and went lower throughout the session. Same thing with gold and silver too. So these, what's funny about this is they were all up in the first hour of the session, and they all went down. So I don't know. It's tough to kind of put a reasoning behind that. But you would think that something would be benefiting, but they all went down. So from 10 o'clock, if you sold everything, you look like a stud. Performers for sector solar, very strong today, which I'm happy about. Was able to get out of a trade that I was holding two solar names. I was holding some First Solar, which worked really well. I was in some calls and took them off for profits and then rolled, which has been working really well for me. Rolling out and up, like we see a lot of times on the tape, where you kind of take off a position and you take profits and go out to a higher strike, maybe even a further month, and then try to let the trade run, which is again very difficult when you go back to the S&P chart on the 1 hour. It is very difficult to let your winners run and come up with really good results, right? Hitting singles and doubles right now and not getting greedy is what's working the majority of the time. You can every once in a while get something more than that, but it's those, I think, right now are few and far between with the way this market has been moving like this. What else? And then there was kind of a lot of things in the middle, right? Gold miners did do pretty well today, but you can see energy stocks are continuing to get hit. So no follow through at all from that Monday on the pop in energy stocks. So if you didn't chase there, this is kind of what I thought would take place. Kind of tough, right? I'm never giving out any advice or recommendations, but I didn't. The only thing I put on was a little bit of OIH just to have some exposure, which did not work at all. But I had no exposure to energy names. Still, really don't have any exposure to energy names. I'm more about solar, and I own one defense name as well. The semiconductors, they also were pretty weak as well through the session. SMH finished down 70 basis points. Retail was weak as well. FANG stocks, Facebook, believe it or not, performed the best with Zuckerberg, I guess, testifying again, I believe, what he's doing. And Netflix was the worst. So just a roundabout, just to give you a sense of what went on there in terms of option activity. Again, we're seeing interest in terms of uh, you know people buying, funds buying some names. Morgan Stanley, which I thought was a really interesting trade this morning. I'm already long in the Tribeca tactical portfolio, Goldman Sachs, which I think is actually a slightly better looking chart. But somebody's positioning for Morgan Stanley. Again, half these trades that we're seeing on the tape in option activity, if you just sit and wait and don't chase, and I know that's very difficult to do, you're getting better entries a lot of the times. Again, not every single time, but it seems like if you don't chase and you sit back and wait a little bit, you're getting some better opportunities. EROS. This was a big winner in the room today. I did not trade this thing, even though we saw calls go up multiple times. Congratulations, up 38%. Hit a high of 392 today. So really nice, and even gave you a chance on the after the open to get involved in this name. Hindsight 2020, of course. Just a few other names for option activity. SE, which is a name I'm long. Shack, which I was dying to chase. I didn't do anything today, but Shack finished just fine. I think this Shack chart looks pretty interesting. They were accumulating, I think it was October calls. Shack looks like it may want to take another leg higher here. So SE, October, and I think it was January calls. Multiple trades that we saw in SE again. Salesforce, interesting. They were, looks like, I'll check open interest tomorrow because this October line did have, I mean, this has been a really messy chart. I've kind of just been watching this name. I think what's worked best is like whenever this name sells off, maybe selling put spreads. But I think until this name really breaks out, I'm kind of just sitting on my hands. A lot of consolidation. A weekly chart kind of helps. I think once it goes, it's got a good chance because it's kind of sitting here coiled. ZTO, second day of this one. APPS, which is a software play, kind of an interesting play. Saw some January 2021. Not a bad looking chart, in my opinion. This is the weekly chart. So again, it hasn't really taken over these moving averages, but again, you may be able to get in, a little bit cheaper than what they put on if you sit and you wait a little bit. What else? ON Semiconductor saw some more call activity. We saw calls. So remember, some calls went up last week. I think it was on Friday versus shares. I think they were substituting some of their shares into options. Maybe not everything, but I did see a lot of shares go up against options. CPRI could be a squeeze play, and a little bit of call buying in the defense area. RTN. All right, so you put together these lists, of names where there's interest, and you can kind of wait and see if you can maybe get in a little bit cheaper, and just what I've been doing that's working best right now is just legging into positions very light, because it seems like when I do that, that happened for me in BABA, for example, which completely gave back all the gains. It's crazy how this works. 10 o'clock, these stocks look great, and BABA gave it all the way back. But I'm out of this name. But, a couple times we saw call activity in BABA, and, once or twice I probably added. And then once we saw the name go cheap, get cheaper, there's a better entry for you. So that's what seems to be working the best right now from a trading standpoint, is just taking those multiple entries and buying on the weakness, because chasing, just has not worked. Wow, I cannot believe this thing gave back all the gains in it. But a bunch of stocks did that today. All right, guys, that's it. We got one more day again tomorrow. We'll go over all that quadruple witching stuff tomorrow, pre-open, just as a reminder. But we'll see how that goes tomorrow. Again, you kind of, for me, I stay away from the open in terms of trading, which I normally do anyway. But that's it. And if you guys have any questions, by all means, email me. cfromhertz at tribecatradegroup.com if you have any membership questions as well. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow.